Evening, everybody in television land. It's 6:28 p.m. We're just sitting here, so we're going to go a little bit earlier. Today is Tuesday, July 2nd, 2019. It's a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board, and we're going to say the pledge, if you'll join us. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Randy.
Trustee LaRue is absent and excused this evening. Trustee Marks.
Present.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Duran.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, our legal counsel Roger Zappa, Assistant Fire Chief Rob Cochran, and Township Fire Chief Dan Shanahan is present. No committee members present.
Thank you, Randy. Any public comment? Anybody want to share something? Our public's back there now. He's quiet. Okay, then no board member comment in response to that. Tonight's consent agenda will include the approval of regular meeting minutes of June 18th, 2019, and work session minutes of June 21st. Bills payable in the amount of $126,636.38. Our committee and other reports tonight include Peter White Public Library Advisory Council minutes of March 6th, Planning Committee agenda for June 26th, and minutes of May 22nd. The July 2019 billing calendar, utility billing calendar. Correspondence tonight, a letter and a check received from Keweenaw Bay Indian Community regarding the 2% distribution. And just for the record, that totals $27,314, and they've asked that it be given to the fire department. Notice of hearing for Semco Energy gas customers, case number U-20479. And Marquette County Township Association letter of June 10th to the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority and their response to the questions, and a qualifying statement from the state of Michigan.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Support. I have a couple questions.
Is there something you want to pull out?
No, just information, that's all.
Okay.
On the Warner Street, that pothole on Warner Street, Randy, wouldn't that be the county's responsibility?
If it's on the west side of Ontario, yes. If it's on the east side of Ontario, it's ours.
I guess it's ours then, right?
Well, it's all the county's responsibility.
We did the road, but it's actually a county road. They constructed the portion on the west side of Ontario. We constructed the portion on the right side of Ontario, but it was under their direction and under their auspices. So I think Trustee Wiegand is correct. It's a county road issue.
Lynn,
Okay, sir?
we have farmers out doing their initial site prep. I don't know if that was in that or not.
I don't think it was.
We may want to get a hold of him and have him add it to his list.
Take a look at it at least.
Yeah. But he's out painting lines now for what they're going to do.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing is.
Where is it? Do you know where it is, or you weren't specific as to where it was? Ernie?
In the pothole?
Yeah,
I went down and looked at it. To me, there didn't seem to be much there at the time.
You're talking about just that little
Just a
low
little
area?
dip.
oh,
Oh, yeah, it's not really a pothole, it was sinking. I'm not sure why, but.
I think the other thing
Again,
is.
we had a, well, of course, the warranty would be over, we have a warranty on that because they tried a different kind of underlayment, but we'll take a look at it and see what it is.
I just looked at it, I said, to me, that's what should be the county's responsibility. We paid for it and did everything, now they assume responsibility for it.
Well, and also the contractor wanted to use a different kind of bedding material and guaranteed it for a period of time. I'll have to go back to the contract and see what that period of time was.
Extended warranty was for cracks, wasn't it?
It was for the road not,
Was it?
Yeah, it was for the continuity of the road surface.
I think the other thing I have is on the dollars from the Indian community. It just that I don't know if the fire department has determined how they're going to use that or not at this point in time, and that.
We didn't even know it was coming. It was not a request, it was gifted by the tribe.
Their gaming, 2% gaming
Right.
distribution.
Okay. I would say just when you do it, we send a letter thanking them and then telling them how we're going to spend it and that too.
We've done the letter, the thank you letter. The question about how we're going to apply it is still open for discussion. There are obviously a couple of different ways to go. We've got a fund being set up for maintenance, the replacement of equipment. So there's a number of places it could go, but again, it's going to be primarily the department's going to be looking internally about how best to do that.
The other one is on the Simcoe Energy gas customers. Reading through that, they want a 10% increase in that. How much we as an organization or community can do other than sending a letter to the
All you can do is comment.
And I think we should send a letter, our opposition to a 10% increase. It's ridiculous in that too. So that's the three things I saw going through it.
It's because somebody's got to pay for this line that's being extended,
Yeah, I thought that right away. That's all I have.
Okay. I don't know where we are with that. Did we do,
We have a motion and a second.
we didn't finish it
We
then?
did not.
Okay. Is that it? Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Then the rest of the agenda, I'd like to suggest that we add a work session to discuss the manager recruitment issue. We do have the backup now, so if we can add to the agenda to set a meeting for a work session, I think that would be good, unless somebody has an objection. We can make it 9E. Just say, set work session for, I don't know how you want to word it,
Manager recruit.
recruitment, okay.
Determine that when we get to that
Yeah,
item.
when we get to it. Maybe you don't want to, but at least it'll be on the agenda. So I'd look for a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay. And I haven't heard of any conflicts of interest, so I think we're okay on that one. I didn't have any board education or privilege comment. Community linkage, actually, there's three things that I'd like to share. Randy's got the first one, if you want to take the first one, the other two are smaller. You did see some paperwork on the assessed and taxable value of Myers that he wanted to address tonight.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the board members know that contrary to what their commitments were early on, Meyer has filed for tax tribunal hearing to reduce the taxes. They are taking a position that their taxable value should be $4 million as compared to the $14 million construction costs that they just completed less than a year ago. In essence, it's going to be a reduction of just a hair under $3 million. The impact to the area is $138,602 a year in less taxes. That's less taxes to us, to the fire department, to the school district, to the county, to everybody else. And I had Dulcie put together a sheet of what the impact is going forward. I guess that's their welcome to the community for hosting them. We are still obligated to provide all the services that we promised for what they promised and apparently forgot about. That's where we are. Now we are faced with a decision of having to spend upwards of $30,000 to do an appraisal and to engage legal services to challenge it going forward. And as you know, the last time we did this with Lowe's, it ended up costing us about $300,000 to go through this process. So here we are again. All of the big box stores and operations in our township have gone to the tribunal and have been successful with one exception. Walmart. Walmart came to us early on and said, we do not support this. We want to be a participating member in your community. They sat down with us and went through their final plan. We agreed on what their taxable value should be. It was a very, very slight reduction, and we walked away, and that was it. So they are the only big box in this community that has not gone to the tax tribunal and continues to pay their fair share of taxes to the community to support the services, just like the folks sitting in the back row, who have been to Myers at least 7 times so far this year. Once, very significant potential loss to them when one of their own staff members inadvertently, and I don't know what the right terminology, but it basically disabled their fire protection system, and could have been a very, very, very costly thing for them that we saved. Probably close to $138,000 if their whole store would have flooded. So at any event, that's where we are. Again, a little disappointed, well, not a little disappointed, quite a bit, because of all of the standing up in the community about how great we're going to be and we're partners and everything else, and then to turn around and file for a reduction of more than 50% of the value.
So
Can the general public do any boycotting? Is that legal to take signs, boycott, let the public know exactly what's going on and what stores are trying to get away with
Well,
this ridiculous thing?
Basically, this is coming right out of their pockets. This is coming right out of the residents' pockets. It's taxes that are not going to be coming to the community from a community member to support services. And, you know, everybody makes their own independent decision on where they spend their money. So, I mean, the answer to your question is yes, they can.
Well, I think if we organize,
Whatever they
or
wanna do.
if some individuals organized a boycott and started going from store to store and maybe get some coverage from the local media, maybe they would take another look at it. I don't know, but I don't know what else we can possibly do.
They did that at Lowe's back in the beginning. They staged demonstrations and stuff. You gotta remember, these are still neighbors and friends and relatives who
Yeah.
work there.
It's a corporate decision.
And that's coming from somebody sitting in an office somewhere in New York or California. I mean, they're the ones making the decisions, not even the store manager. Store manager told me point blank the first day I went in for the tour, because that's the first question I asked him was, okay, all the rest of your stores have gone to the tribunal or reduction somehow. What are your intent here? You know, this is the first time you're opening. What can we expect? And he said, no, absolutely not. He stood right in the parking lot and said, we have no intention of doing that. We're here to support the community, blah, blah, blah. Of course, it's not up to him either. It's the
Right.
corporation. It's not his decision by any means, but
But from our standpoint, you know, the direct impact to us is we get $14,690 less taxes from them. Fire department's gonna lose about $7,500 of revenue. Our road millage is gonna lose $4,500 of revenue. These are all substantial. County operating, you know, the county, who's in dire straits, $17,900 of taxes they will not get. You know, Marktran, 15,800. It's just, you just go down the list. You know, the big losers, this sinking fund, Marquette Community Schools, $53,000, almost $54,000 of taxes they will not get.
and that's not reimbursable because that's a single
Not
fund.
reimbursable, that's sinking fund.
And Myers just pockets it, corporate.
Well,
Stockholders or whoever. If you add up the county, the 1, 2, 3, 7, for 7 county direct operations and aging and dispatch and rescue and everything, it's $22,824. If you add up what the township is losing, everything, fire, roads, our taxes, the fire equipment, the law enforcement, Heritage Trail, even our administration fee, $31,651 is coming right off our budget right now.
and we still have to provide all the services.
Yep.
So, here we are again.
Heartening. Dave?
Where does this line up with the action that was ongoing down in Escanaba?
Don't know that it does. This is a brand-new filing.
Well, I realize that, but the principle that has been established in Escanaba, does this same principle apply here?
The Supreme Court requirement that the tax tribunal apply all 3 methods of assessing and rendering their decision would apply to this. But I'm not real confident that it's gonna make a whole lot of difference at the tax tribunal. Sure, they'll apply all 3, But then they'll make their own judgment of what the taxation should be, just like they've done before. And it can be appealed, again, just like we did before, just like the county did, just like everybody else has. And so far, it's for naught. Again, unless and until somebody takes a position that says the law has been misapplied, it's not gonna get corrected. And I don't see anybody currently in office or who wants to be in office that's going to do that, politically.
Who's first? You, Ernie? Go ahead, John.
If you're really asking what can be most effective that we do, I think we should encourage as much help as we can get from state officials. They're the ones that can put pressure on the rest of the people in the legislature. They're the ones who can have effect on the corporate activity. That a voice or two in the Senate and in the House, gathering the other people who have been adversely impacted, can have more effect than any standing, walking, sign-carrying issue. They're the people who have the most opportunity to effectively cause them hardship.
Well, perhaps
They
we could
may
have,
not do it because of what I was saying. It's politically not an easy thing to do. But we're not supposed to elect people to office to do things that are easy. We're supposed to be electing people, as we are, to do the right thing. And that would be the right thing.
I did call Sarah Cambenzi's office and had a lengthy discussion with Mary Wardell. And
well, perhaps they can go to the governor and get 200,000 for us like they did for Escanaba. It's taxpayer money, why not?
I guess what I was suggesting is we're not just gonna ignore this, surely?
No, we're not gonna ignore it, but we have to make some significant decisions at this point. If we're going to challenge this, we have to have an appraisal done, which is gonna be about 30 grand. We have to engage our attorneys, basically, which could be anywhere from, well, Roger can get a better idea of how much time it takes to challenge one of these things. I mean, you could be talking months of attorney's fees, court fees, filing fees, all kinds of things.
My involvement at the local level, we've basically resolved almost all of the tax tribunal appeals that have been handled. If they cannot be negotiated and resolved, then we have to hire someone from downstate to handle the actual tax tribunal hearing that takes place, and that's your huge expense. The expense of just filing an answer and negotiating and attempting to resolve it locally is actually relatively small. We have one pending right now that's in the course of negotiation that can't say, but if it will or will not resolve, but I'm cautiously optimistic. So every time we do that, there's a huge savings.
so is that like $500 or $5,000, the cost, just ballpark? I mean, everyone's
Well,
probably different,
Yeah,
too.
order of magnitude, we're $3 million apart, so it's not gonna be.
No, but I meant the cost, the legal cost,
Oh,
just to do
it
the,
was huge, yeah. The legal cost for us to take the Lowe's case to Court of Appeals level
Yeah, the whole
was
level.
$250,000 by the time it was done.
but
With
I mean, the first
briefs
step.
and filings and witnesses and, and everything else.
Some of the local ones, and it is contingent on the number of hours spent, the
Right.
time consumed, whether it can be resolved with an appraisal or without an appraisal. We've gotten appraisals on several of our appeals, and on a couple of them, we were able to settle them without even getting an appraisal. If you can settle it or resolve it without an appraisal, that can be less than $1,000.
Right.
in expenses.
Well, that's quite a-
We've had some that are.
The 300.
Several $100s that have been expended in fees, attorney fees, and legal costs.
But again, I think here, we're driving with a corporate entity driving the bus, and I'm not confident that we're gonna be very close on settling.
Why would you need an appraisal on a building that was just completed?
Because you have to have an appraisal to go forward in the
Well, okay,
process.
what did it cost to build it? There's your appraisal. You know, if it costs 5 million, 10 million, that's what it should be valued at,
One would think.
yeah.
You'd think the bank loan would kind of agree
Do
with
you
you.
think that,
And the
yeah,
insurance that they have to pay on it.
exactly,
But somehow that got lost in the tribunal.
yeah.
But again, from the other side arguing, corporately arguing, we have several hundred of these stores. They're all exactly the same. They're all constructed the same. Some are a little older than others, but all the others are at 25 a square foot. And why is this one at 65 a square foot? And that's the argument that you have to counteract to be able to prevail. And it's pretty hard when they've got all of those comparables, which are their very same formats, their very same stores, their very same construction materials. Everything's the same. It's just newer. But it's going to be dark at some point. So that's the theory. At some point, it's going to be vacant, and then what's it worth when it's vacant? And that's what they've been
Back to us when it's
settling.
vacant.
That's the dark store theory.
Roger?
And in response to trustee Everson's question, the cost less depreciation approach is one of 3 approaches that is mandated to be utilized
Right.
for the valuation of any property. But it's only one of 3. The others are comparable sales of similar structures. And the third one is an income capitalization approach. And what that is how much does the property generate of income in order to make it an attractive investment? What is the valuation based on a reasonable rate of return and the income it's generating and so forth? There's a formula that can be utilized for the income capitalization approach, and all of those 3 are to be weighed and utilized in evaluation generally. And that's what goes into an appraisal. So an appraisal would involve more than just the cost less 1 year of depreciation. It would have to take into account, and that's where the expense of an appraisal sometimes comes into play, is you can't just look to Negaunee Township or Ishpeming or Chocolate Township to find a comparable store that has sold within the last 12 months. You have to frequently go to other portions of the state, or in many instances, other states, to find comparable sales to utilize it in an appraisal.
Economy, other competitors, all kinds of things come into the appraisal.
Ernie?
A couple of things. Looking at this data sheet here, I would suggest that we send it out to all our residents through, next time we send a water bill, and put a little heading on it, what it's
Yeah.
all about, let them know. And the other thing is, are Myers also thinking about, or in the process of building one up in Houghton Hancock area or that too? It may be
They are.
worthwhile to send this up to them and tell them what to expect within 18 months and that. What they gotta look forward to, so.
Well, Dulcie was gonna put something together for us. She was waiting to see if this was on her docket, that it was coming. So she was gonna wait and give us the whole thing. Because I had asked her, if you remember, a few meetings ago, for a compilation of where we were with all of these. Because we, like Roger said, we're kind of getting to the bottom. There's none left, until everybody else starts to go. So maybe rather than even singling them out, just put everybody on there. It's got the list of, it's got Menards and Lowe's and, Advanced Auto, and it's got all of them listed.
That would be fine, but I think as far as Horton Hancock, send this up to them, look what you got forward to in 18 to 24 months down the line. This is what you're gonna see.
But again, from our standpoint, the demands are there for us to provide service. We're providing the service. They're just not going to be paying their fair share of what it costs to provide that service. And, and again, that's going to put us in a position of having to look at how do we recover almost $8,000 worth of losses to the fire department. not just their operating, but their brand-new equipment fund that you basically just put into place is gonna lose $1,700.
$100.
So it's not gonna be generating as much as what we anticipated it was gonna generate. Law enforcement, sheriff's department, I mean, I'm sure the sheriff is gonna be there fairly often, the sheriff's millage gets a hit. So, I mean, it hits across all levels, and really the only place there is to replace it from is residents, that's it. At some point, it's gonna have to go back to that, we're gonna have to look at what our millages are, and some services are gonna have to be put out for a millage vote, because we won't have the money to continue them. And if the residents don't wanna pay the additional millage, we don't provide the service anymore. So it's just the way it is.
It's a circle. Anything else on that? Yeah. The only other things I was gonna mention was, Reggie and I met with one of the UPCO, I think he's a district, or I forget what his name was.
Yeah, he's the district representative.
Representative, yeah. And just, some of our people are UPCO, what did he say, 15, I think?
It's
15
about 15, they're in the Middle Island, or not Middle Island, but Partridge, in the Partridge Bay area, basically.
So they're gonna be getting smart meters, and I don't know what effect that'll have on their rates or anything, but we were talking about utilities a minute ago with Semco. So they're kind of excited about that, being able to have automatic readers like we do with our water side of it. They're gonna be able to do that for their customers, so they don't have to go out and read their meters. So we had that meeting last week, and then we also had a meeting with our two county board commissioners, Steve Adamiti and John DePietro, and spent about an hour talking to them. And the only notes that I made, I mean, it was a pretty general discussion as far as what's going on. They talked about the jail quite a bit because of the lack of room and space and what they've tried to do over the years to figure out whether to build another facility or how to expand this. And they've got women on one side, men on the other, and of course the men are crowded and the women aren't as packed as the other side, and the issues that they're having to deal with, and most of us don't even think about, in our everyday life. They've got ice training going on with the Army helicopter that they're gonna be working on this winter. And if you've read the paper, there are the satellites that are being considered for the air base area out on 553. So those were the highlights I picked up. I don't remember if you don't remember anything else, Randy?
They're pretty much the big ones there.
Just general.
They're concerned about taxation, obviously, and this isn't gonna help with that, in that regard, but they're concerned about competing interests for taxation, and, they've got millages coming up, we have millages coming up, everybody's got millages coming up. You have these kinds of losses, they have to be dealt with, but they're primarily dealing right now with jail overcrowding is one of their primary issues that they're trying to figure out. We're housing prisoners in other counties, in other communities, basically, because there isn't room. So, that's a struggle for them. And, the questions regarding the rocket launching and satellites and all that, that's under discussion. Apparently Sawyer is in consideration, along with the former Kinchlow base. The strength that we have here is that Kinchlow base is very close to the Canadian border, and that's an issue for that kind of activity. I would think it would be consideration for our commercial traffic and our general aviation traffic here as well. I mean, I would think the airspace has to be closed anytime they're doing that. Sawyer's a pretty good navigation site for overseas and orient aircraft. You see them going over all the time. But those are all considerations that have to be taken into the award of that project.
They thought they'd know something in September.
Yeah, September, October. Let's see what else was on the docket. Well, it's gonna, obviously part of the city of Marquette is part of their jurisdiction as well. And there's concern about the power plants going down and closing down, the fiscal impact of that and those kinds of issues. Just a general conversation.
And we let them know what was going on with us, too. So those are the only couple things I wanted to share with you too. Then we can do committee updates. What have we got, Dave?
Let's see, the Planning Commission, June 26th meeting, the Road Committee's transportation plan was distributed for the commission's review and inclusion as an appendix to the master plan. And as directed by the board, the commission began planning the most effective sequence of events necessary to amend the zoning ordinance for accommodation of medical and recreational marijuana. And the commission found Fox Subaru to be in violation of the approved site plan as it applies to buffer yards and removal of trees within the Marquette County Road Commission right-of-way along North Woods Road. They will be noticed in writing by the zoning and planning administrator and directed to cease operations within the buffer yard area and the Marquette County Road Commission, and request to appear before the commission to discuss the site plan and buffer yard modifications and restoration of removed trees that were located within the right-of-way. And zoning and planning is meeting with Tesla and Myers, speak of the devil, discussing the installation of charging stations within the Meyer parking lot. Apparently we have a lot of Teslas up here, and these charging stations are specific to Tesla. You can't charge anything else there. Was canceled for tonight due to lack of agenda items. The next meeting is scheduled for August the 6th. And the Recreation Committee is still working on their rec plan update, and we should see the final draft in the completed form at their July 16th meeting. The ice rink roof conceptual drawings were reviewed and returned for the addition of a larger overhang to accommodate covered viewing along the sides of the ice rink. And Sally Davis, representing the Rotary clubs, addressed the committee, and she neglected to mention that part of the requirements that for the national grant that we got for the swing set mandates that a sign be installed commemorating the swing set as a donation from Rotary. They all will supply the sign and we'll put it up. So it's not a costly item on their part at all, or on ours. And other than that, that's it.
Dave? On the buffer zone for Fox, now, are they gonna be required to put larger trees in, or do they get by with just putting little trees back in?
The initial site plan approval, they were using the plantings that were there as the buffer yard. And there was enough plantings there that they weren't even gonna have to put a fence in. That all is gonna change, and I don't know how it's gonna change, but if you take a drive down Northwoods Road,
It's wide open.
a lot of trees have been pulled out, especially along the Road Commission right-of-way, and we didn't even get an answer out of the as of the commission meeting date as to whether they had gotten a permit from the Marquette County Road Commission for the removal of those trees. But there's a fairly large swath of them that have been removed. And we're getting a lot of complaints from the neighbors to their south with respect to noise and dust that's coming onto their property. So that was the action we took.
Thank you.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yes.
The only other committee would be events. Pete's not here. We probably haven't had any meetings yet for,
Well, we've had a couple of meetings, basically, working towards the Community Day at Lions Field on the August 3rd, Saturday, August 3rd. We're in the heavy-duty planning stages for that. It's coming together quite nicely. I think at their last board meeting, I had the draft preliminary brochure was attached to the manager's report. We have not had a meeting since your last board meeting. I think we'll be scheduled for one probably just after the 4th of July to start wrapping that up to be ready for the 3rd.
okay. Any questions for anybody? Okay. Also included in here was the draft committee reports for the Recreation Committee from June 18th. And then 9A is consider auditor's information regarding fund definition and reserve funding. That includes general fund, enterprise fund, and then the auditor's 2018 notes to the financial statements. You do have, I got the audit. I don't know if anybody else did or if it was emailed.
I got it.
Okay, okay.
I don't have it with me, but I have
Looked
it.
pretty good. We can thank staff. They did an awesome job of answering all the questions and keeping everything in line. But you also did get, Randy sent out best practices on fund balances and general funds, and there's some definitions in there and some recommendations. They recommend two months of regular general funding operating for backup. So I'm thinking, unless, I don't know what the plan was, but we need to at least have a conversation about this, maybe a work session. And have, unless somebody's got some questions now, or, I mean, I've read through it, I've got some notes, and I think we need to figure out how we want to gauge our definitions, and what's pretty much what Dave was asking for. Yes, no?
As I read through this, it appears that it doesn't really make a difference what we call our accounts as long as they're categorized in the right matter. And they gave 4 or 5 different ways that they were to be categorized, and then we are pretty free on the definitions and how they get used. The municipality can put whatever definitions in use they want to on them, both the categories and the individual specific funds, if I read that right. So it looks like the ball's back in our court. We can decide what fund names we want to apply to what, and what definitions, which are going to they give some good guidelines in there as to how those definitions, what they have to cover, as far as if the conditions that one of those funds can be used, and if they are used, the time that it has to be replaced in, and that's all to be determined by the municipality. So again, we can do whatever we want to do. It seems the only thing we got to do to make the auditor happy is make sure that whatever fund name we pick, we categorize it as they're suggesting they be categorized, which is non-spendable fund balance, restricted fund balance, committed funds balance, assigned fund balance, and unassigned fund balance. So it's pretty straightforward. We don't need to call our funds that. It's just we have to put them in those categories.
So would you want to have the manager come up with a template of, Randy, of something?
Suggestion, we're right at the point now where, as you know, we use the month-end June as our target, basically, for then building the budget going forward. So we'll be getting into heavy-duty budget discussions, internal departmental budget discussions here quickly. So what I would suggest is it may be a good idea to schedule a work session, a preliminary work session, to have fire department, public works, general fund, all of the others fall under the general fund, planning and zoning, all that fall under general fund, but to have a work session where we all get on the same page before we start putting our budgets together. Sooner better than later. So like within the next week or
two?
so, to have a sit-down so everybody leaves the meeting on the same page of how we're putting the budgets together and what definitions we're using. So we can then get those done for you and have something I want to try to have budgets to you fairly early this year, because of some of the issues we had last year in terms of definitions and how we're tracking things. That would include Lois in that discussion as well, our accountant.
You want to look at your calendars?
And
Figure out something for next week?
I would hope before we start talking to the individual departments about that we would resolve this definitions issue and the criteria under which the use of those funds are, because that is something that would apply to all of the different departments.
Well, Randy wouldn't know how they apply, but maybe it would help to have the department heads part of the discussion, I think was what he was thinking.
Well, information back and forth, about how best, from the standpoint of how, like, the enterprise funds versus the general funds, they might be slightly different, but we would all be on the same page in terms of where we're going with it. Now, I'm not going to have all of those. Most 90% of mine are all committed. I mean, I don't have contingency funds or anything like that in the general fund, a very small miscellaneous fund, but that's for tax tribunal, and that's a committed. It's under the general services line item.
Actually, as I read that, it's assigned fund balances that you've got. Committed fund balances
Yeah.
are funds that are designated for something specific.
Specific
It can't be
project.
spent for anything else.
Right. Like the patrol car, for instance.
Like the patrol car, committed fund balance would also be something like the equipment fund for the equipment replacement fund. It would be an infrastructure replacement fund.
Roof for the ice rink.
Yeah, all those are committed type funds.
And that's where we were going with some of those funds anyway, with the capital improvement plan, was to earmark them, or committed, whatever word you want to use, so that we knew that this is the money set aside for that. If we choose to take that and move it somewhere else, that's our choice, but at least it's documented. So
At least-
whatever term
At
we
least it
want to
requires a
use.
board action to do it.
Right.
Correct.
And that's what I was suggesting. I guess I would think it would be important to come up with those basic definitions first, and then, so that when you ask for preliminary budgets and that type of stuff, that everybody is using the same definitions, and including this board, that everybody's talking about the same thing when you're talking about committed funds.
And doesn't it get a code number for the budget?
Chart of account number, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Your number
all of
sign.
that should be done at the same time. I don't really care what you call it, as long as I'm able to identify.
Well,
It
the only
should
thing-
have some similarity to its use.
And the only thing the auditor, this recommendation from this literature we got handed out, is they be categorized under one of those descriptions. But call it whatever you want.
So, yes, work session? Next week?
When?
Next week? Actually, I'm gone Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week.
Monday, Tuesday.
Tell us,
Forgot about that. I'm gonna do the supervisors conference in
Oh, that's
Traverse
right.
City.
God, that's already the middle of July. Gee.
Yeah, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
is that a learning session?
Yes, it is, because I didn't go to MTA this year. So I thought I'd do this for 2 days. The week of the 15th, we got another board meeting. Then we have a free week. When are you thinking we'd get our budgets, Randy?
September,
Second week in August, okay.
by September 1.
Okay. So we definitely need the month of August to get it ready, so at least by the middle of July to talk about it.
Well, that leaves you almost 4 months, basically, to get through the budget process, the work sessions, if you have it by September 1.
What are you thinking? The week of the 15th, it's the same week as a board meeting. How fast do you want to do this?
I'm available Monday, the 8th, or any day on the week of the 15th.
8th and 9th would be okay for me.
Not for me, nine's noon.
I'm not available on the 9th either. I'd be available on the 8th.
Okay. Does the 8th work for anybody? How about you, Randy? What's your work schedule?
In
When?
the afternoon, that'd be fine.
When?
Monday, the 8th?
8th,
What
Is that a
what are you
Monday?
thinking? Yeah.
Monday.
It's fine in the afternoon.
2 or
Next
3?
Monday.
2 would be fine.
2 o'clock? How would that work?
2 o'clock on the 8th?
Monday, the 8th? Okay. I just need a motion.
2 to 4?
Well, whatever.
Yeah, we'll just put 2 o'clock.
I'll make a motion
Is that
that
a
we have a
motion,
special meeting, or work session on Monday, the 8th, from 2 until whenever.
Just 2 o'clock.
Yeah, 2 o'clock.
Is that for definitions discussion?
Yes.
Yeah. Budget
I'll support.
definitions.
And the reason?
Definitions.
Monday to
For the
8th.
budget.
Just put budget down, it'll cover the.
Budget definitions.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have time to post that, so that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And whatever you think, Randy, that you can provide us, some kind of a basic to start with. All right, we should have moved the fire department up. Consider expansion of fire rescue service hours work session. That's also another hour, so we need to talk about the fact that they have less money now, or
Well-
going to.
Yeah, but, it's still, that's really not gonna have that much of an impact on what we were planning, because we're identified it. Basically, what we're talking about is we're talking about follow-up from the work session that we had roughly 2 weeks ago, basically, or a week ago, this one was, with regard to the desire that we think for service purposes to change the operation of the fire department from an 8-hour shift to a 12-hour shift, and to accommodate the ability to work further into the evenings. Would be an 8 o'clock in the morning to an 8 o'clock at night shift, Monday through Friday, and then also on Saturday and Sunday, which we do not currently staff, either the evenings or the weekends. And we are having significant increases in demand on those times. So we've looked at how we could most effectively and efficiently provide that. It accounts for about 70% of our calls during those timeframes. And in conjunction with adding 2 additional firefighter EMTs, along with our existing staff and with the general fund staff that I have that supplement the fire department, the 3 staff that I have that are also firefighters, and one's an EMT, that we can shift to this 12-hour shift 7 days a week, 8 to 8 coverage, and do it within our current resources with a very minimal increase to the special assessment of 0.3 of a mil. So we're proposing to the board to consider approving moving the special assessment from 2.5 mils to 2.8 mils to support this.
Any questions? First, Dave?
I'd make a motion to increase the fire department special assessment by 0.3 mils for a total assessment of 2.8 mils for the purpose of increasing full-time department staffing to 7 days per week, 12 hours a day.
And this would require a public hearing.
Randy?
Before we do that, we have to have a public hearing first. So the motion would be to schedule a public hearing for that.
There you go.
Do we feel like we have enough information from the fire department to, I mean, I didn't expect a motion, but that's fine, just so we can get our questions answered. Do we not need a work session? Comments?
Well, we had one already, and I think the board from that work session
Got enough
feels
information?
comfortable to move this forward.
That's fine with me.
So I will support Dave's motion to schedule a public, or a public hearing to increase the special assessment.
Okay.
And that, we could do that next meeting even, right, Roger, as long as it's a
Good.
public hearing, or is there any timelines on that posting? Just other than it's posted, yeah.
We would put the notice out that there, as we have in the past, that there's going to be on that date and time, we put a public notice out that that's going to occur, and that we would add it to the agenda as a public hearing for that purpose.
Doesn't have to be 14 days.
I think it does for a special assessment, because it's not a voted
required.
millage.
Right, yeah.
I will double check that first thing in the morning.
Okay.
I believe, though, we probably do have, it'd be probably pretty close. If not next meeting, it'd be the first meeting in August.
Because we got a 3-week.
Well, we'll wait for Roger to check on it, but it's not a voted millage, so I think we don't have that 14-day requirement. I think it's just a public notice at least 7 days prior to the hearing, public hearing, like the budget.
Well, the reason I bring that up is any public hearings out of the planning commission require 14
Yeah.
days. Is why I bring that up.
That is governed by a different statute,
Okay.
however, and there are a number of public hearings that we don't typically have in the township, and they each have their separate provisions on the timeline. I will double check first thing in the morning.
Gentlemen, did you want to comment, share, answer questions, or?
Well, while Dan is coming up to the podium, you know, it's like anything, anytime you propose anything that's an increase, there's gonna be, you know, concern about that. But this is a very minimal increase. Basically, what it amounts to, it's 30 cents per $1,000 of value on your property. So if you've got a $300,000 home, it's gonna cost you $45 a year, you know,
Or less.
or less. I mean, at 300,000 level, because your taxable value is half of what your assessed value is. And that's what this is based on. Wow, lightning.
That's broke.
But that's, I mean, we feel that this is a really minimal increase to provide that level of service and to cover 70% of our call volume.
It's a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Chief?
No, it sure is. And I guess, I think if you do need any more information, please contact me. I think we've given you as much as we think you need, but if you do need more, please, I guess, if you don't have to go through Randy, the manager, you can please, just contact me. And we are still working on other options. I'm glad you approved this, and yes, we do want to move forward with this, but we are still working on trying to do, other options. So, yes, we do want to keep this going forward, but we're not 100% committed, if I'm making sense, and I have discussed that with the manager.
I mean, basically what the chief is talking about is we are having conversations with the rest of the staff basically about different ways to utilize the paid on-call staff and have, this would be the ideal, but we do have some fallbacks if this doesn't work out. You know, obviously we would have to recruit 2 new firefighter EMTs. Everybody is looking for firefighter EMTs. They may be available, they may not be available. So that's what we're looking at is this would be the ideal. Would be to have these staffed positions, but if we're unable to staff them for some reason, we're looking at fallback positions with increasing part-time or scheduling part-timers for certain times on a rotating call, and we're looking at all kinds of other options. But this would be the ideal to be of the best level of service to the residents.
So would the
Correct.
public hearing present this option then?
Yes.
Yes, oh, yes,
Okay.
yes, we definitely would like to see, yes.
Because
I don't want-
anything else that we would do would be less of a cost, because we would be potentially, if we're using more of our part-time staff in a different way, in a different structure, some of the benefit costs are less.
Well, initially, when you brought this up, it was gonna be a mill, was what you were kind of suggesting,
That's
best
what we
case
originally thought.
So
and,
that's pretty
you know,
significant to make that kind of,
well,
And
it
we
is.
are watching, we
It's your
really are
sacrifice.
watching, I want to make that clear, we are watching every penny, every,
Well,
dime
every
we
dollar.
spend, just so that,
You know, and it took the chief and the assistant chief and I think maybe a couple of other firefighters with them to sit down and hammer out how a schedule might work compared to what our call volume is on average, and, and it fluctuates. I mean, it depends on weather, it depends on all kinds of things, but on average, we think this 12-hour scheduling between 8 and 8 will accommodate far and away almost 3/4 of our call volume, which is increasing during those hours. And that's the reason we came forward with this, because we think this is probably the most costly way to do it. And if the board is behind this, if we came up with something that was less costly, then you wouldn't levy the 2.3, the additional 0.3 mil. You'd stay at the 2.5. But this gives us the flexibility to work within that 2.5 to 2.8 mil range to come up with a perfect fit.
Dan?
Do you feel that that's enough money, or, I mean, what we're proposing?
it's never enough.
Never enough money.
No, I'm
Somehow I
sorry.
knew that was
Yeah, I
coming,
know.
but I just know how tight things are.
They will be tight, and I've discussed it with the manager, it will be tight.
And this is-
And this hit right, this,
Do it right the first time, if we're gonna do it right, and make sure that we have enough funding. If we need a little more, to still stay under that.
no, we said we did promise, or I think
Yeah,
trustee
we-
Marks or somebody said, please don't come back.
Well, that's what
And
I'm
I do
saying.
understand that, I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, and we do. I mean, we've sat down and calculated this out, and we think that we can make this work with the 2.8 mils like we talked about in the work session. It will take some flexibility on the part of the fire staff, the full-time fires, current full-time fire staff, as well as my building and ground staff that are firefighters. take some flexibility on that, and we can coordinate between general fund and fire fund to let that happen, make that happen. So we've got that flexibility to be able to pick up a little slack if we come up a little bit short on the revenue. We just lost $7,000 out of the fire department's budget. We did project this predicated upon our growth, that we're proposing, our growth pattern, which is still strong. Our growth pattern is still strong. This is obviously it's a disappointment that they're going in this direction, but they're not the only business that's coming into the township. We have businesses, some pretty sizable businesses that are very seriously looking at various locations in the town.
Hopefully they'll feel that they should pay their fair share.
I think the way they're structured, it's not going to be the same as, they won't have the same arguments as the big box stores. So if they did, it would be less of an impact because of the structure of what they're doing. Some of it's residential, some of it's R&D, research and development, some of it is residential, and some of it's commercial.
Anything else? Rob, anything? Anything you want to share or add? Okay.
Thank you to the KBIC, the Keweenaw Bay
Nice
Indian
surprise.
community. Oh, very
Absolutely.
nice.
That was wonderful.
That was a very nice surprise. So,
I think the
thank you.
biggest thing there is coming up with the utilization for it and letting them know and letting the
Sure
public
they-
know.
Yeah, they'd like to know what you're gonna do with it, if it can be specific.
I did send out a letter
Did it
of
say
thanks,
what
and
it
I
was used
sort
for,
of
though?
said that what it was gonna be used for. So, I don't know that we're held to that exactly, but, just some things that were really, hadn't been needed for quite a few years,
Equipment-wise?
equipment-wise, like boots.
Yeah.
I'll bring my pair of boots
Yeah.
in next
No,
time, and I'll
no.
show them to you. We've
I've
needed
seen them. You should not have
and
to wear them.
I know, they're bad.
They've got holes in them.
Awesome.
And I just
They've
said,
got holes in them.
yeah,
But I think something like that, if you can put together your thoughts on utilization and give it to the board, so we know what it is, and then it goes out to the public.
Yeah, that
Okay.
would be nice. Or a
Okay.
copy
Thank
of
you.
the,
All
copy of
right.
the letter, if
Thanks.
it's inclusive enough. Copy of the letter to them that you already sent it, right, you said?
yes, I did run it by the manager.
Yeah, we talked about it.
We
and I
talked
told
about
Dan
it.
to go ahead, and I thought
Yeah, and I
it'd be
said,
good
Randy,
to
would you
come
wanna-
right from the chief.
Yep,
And did you mention boots and stuff in the letter?
yes.
Okay, well, why don't you just give us a copy?
Okay, definitely.
That would
Yep,
be nice.
yep, we'll do that. Okay?
Take some
All right,
take some
thank you.
pictures of the old and the new.
Yeah, I'll bring them in.
You should see them. That's, Thank
Okay,
you.
do we need a roll call because it's a
No,
public hearing?
no, just scheduling, we're just scheduling.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just scheduling it at this point, and it would, if Roger comes back and lets us know if it's a 7-day notice or whatever it is, we'll get it published and then get it on the agenda for the next meeting.
It'll be next meeting or the one in, depending what the timeline is. Could be
And
either-
from memory, I think it's I'm thinking it's a 7-day notice, 7 days prior to the public hearing. It has to be published.
We need a
that
computer
one.
down on that end. So
Oh.
you can just look it up.
Yeah.
Okay, we still need to vote, correct?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So that's the schedule it for the next meeting. All right, so we don't need a work session there. Consider financial support for the QPAD Regional Commission. Yes, Randy, you can explain that one. We are a member, even though we don't necessarily use the,
We are, and we have been,
Resources.
and, in the past, we've been a little bit concerned about the direction that QPAD was going, and they have stabilized that with a new director, and we're more confident, basically, in what they're doing, and the services that they provide, not only for us, but for other communities in the area that don't have the level of capabilities that we have within our staff. So I would suggest that we continue membership.
it's 700 and,
Anyone, I so move that we support them and however you want to put the wording down, Randy.
Okay, I'll
do we do our
second.
membership?
I'll second that.
Membership.
for
I'll
2020?
second, yep.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Consider draft license agreement format for township property uses.
No, that wasn't in the packet, but we,
I did provide a copy at your desk.
Roger may have brought one too, or did you
It-
coordinate?
No, it has not changed from your last meeting. There were several comments that were made. Supervisor Durant had sent out an email with 3 or 4 suggestions with regard to the diameter of trees that could or could not be removed, leashing of pets, management of the recreational trail creeks approved, year-round, a couple of grammatical changes, nothing really of substance per se in the agreement itself. But there was discussion at the last meeting with regard to the trees in particular as to whether there would be any allowance whatsoever to cut any trees without approval from the township. That was one of the things that came up. Right now, we have an informal agreement with NTN and Ramba and some of the other trail groups that if they are locating a trail and there are small trees, less than 4 inches in diameter, that they're okay, as long as we've approved the trail routing, that they're okay to remove those trees. This is a more formal document. As I say, it's a very informal, 3 inches is about that big around, about 45, 50 millimeter. But at any event, that was one of the issues of discussion at the last meeting. So I don't know that the board has come to any kind of a consensus on that in terms of what it is. We thought 3 inches was reasonable in terms of small trees. It wouldn't be any large trees that would be impacted by that. It would be small growth.
Well, and the caveat there, like Randy said, was that we would pre-approve the trail, initially, what was gonna happen to it. Also the question that Roger and I went back and forth with, the width of the trail. He said he had heard from, 3 to 5, so he put in 4 feet as far as the width. So my husband's an avid biker, and I asked him what he thought, because he's got the mountain bikes too. And I said, 3 feet seems kind of narrow if you've got kind of a divot in the path, and what if you had to walk alongside of it if there was something wrong with the bike, or you got hurt? Would 3 feet be wide enough? He said, no, probably 4. And he said, but actually it's not just a biking trail. Somebody's gonna wanna walk their dog or something. So now I'm thinking a little bit more than 4 might be more apropos, because it's not just for the bikers. And they're gonna put kind of a little divot in there with the bike. They wanna have those edges, to be able to make the turn. So I'm not sure what's totally appropriate, but that was one of the questions I asked as far as size. But my husband thought 4 feet might not be too bad. That's 3. It's hard to judge because you don't have a bike here. You want to be able to walk, and that was the other part of the discussion with the trees. If you've got limbs over, they want to be able to take the brush out a little bit right along the trail. So
I think 4 is fine.
4 is probably, worst case, we extend it to 5 at some point. We can always go bigger, I guess, if they feel like it's not enough when they look at the agreement. The other thing that I had asked was whether this needed to be renewed every year. And Roger said, no, not typically. With this type of a license, it's just until somebody, or unless somebody cancels it. It says, you can't do this anymore, or we don't want to do it anymore. So whether we want to put some kind of a 1-year, 2-year look back, check on it, or just let it go until it kind of means somebody on our side's got to go look and see what's going on periodically, I'm thinking, if it's an open-ended. So those were my issues with looking at it. Any thoughts?
Maintenance involved with it?
They would do that, right?
They maintain the trails.
That's where that kind of cutting brush and cutting trees and stuff part came in. I just didn't want somebody out there with a chainsaw, because that's what has happened in the past. They've just taken our trees down on our property without this agreement. So that's the only thing I was worried about.
Well, if that's the agreement is 4 feet and they take them any wider than that, then they don't have a trail anymore.
Yeah, it says that in here. If anything's not followed, that's it. Randy?
Well, I think it's fine as a draft, and we can move forward. I make a motion, we approve the draft license agreement format for township property uses.
And you support it, John? Okay. Dave?
Is this, I mean, I can see reference to it in the first paragraph, but this is for, is not an exclusive use trail for anyone.
No.
Correct?
Not
No.
exclusive.
That's why I said somebody might be walking too. They might want to walk their dogs. And Roger did ask about whether we wanted to put in a provision to require the pets be leashed and signs and maybe a waste station, if any of that's gonna be.
It's already there.
Well, maybe that's not mine has a question mark on it.
Yeah, we have, I
don't
think,
have the
2
most.
way stations on the roadway now. Or right at the gate.
We could just get the dogs to use them.
I have a couple more questions.
Sure, go ahead.
This is gonna be an agreement with, say, NTM, for example. Is there any requirement that they do some education to their members as to the kinder, friendlier approach to how we use trails?
There can be something specific that's in here. You should be looking at this as strictly something in writing as a bunch of discussion points, because it's hard to conceptualize what an agreement might look like until you have it in front of you. So there's nothing in here that is not revisable or changeable, and could
Or
that be put
amended.
in there? So instead of us assuming that they'll have that education,
Well, you know what happens every time you assume that.
right, so I mean, can we add a sentence in there that, that specifically and expressly states that? Absolutely.
That'd be up to their their
Why-
director.
And for that matter, even the width, the 48-inch width, in fairness, this is kind of what they do. They at least profess some type of expertise in creating trails and so forth. So if they look at this and say that it really needs to be 52 instead of 48, or 36 is enough, this has not been presented to them. That's a topic of fair discussion with them as well, and we might, and certainly would maintain the veto power if they wanted one 7 feet wide, for example. But it's a fair topic for discussion with them once this is in a format that we have a consensus on and is presented to them. Many
Well,
of these items.
and the reason I bring it up is I'm sure we can all recall instances in the past where there have been conflicts
Yeah.
on the trails, and one of the things that have always been talked about when those conflicts come up is wouldn't it be nice if we had some education out there? I would think the onus of responsibility for that education would fall upon the person who signed the agreement to build the trail, whether it be in signage along the trail, or however they want to present it, but they should be presenting some kind of a educational program that says this is how we're going to use the trail, and this is how we're going to educate the public that uses the trail. I think it would just keep us all out of trouble later on down the road.
Kind of a
Oh.
trail etiquette type thing.
They
Yeah.
can carry a gun.
You have a permit.
If they have a permit, they can.
Yeah, I just thought that if that was in there, it would
Most of this
save a lot of
board can-
problems.
Can take that trail.
What was that, Dave?
I would just think if something was in there requiring some training or some accountability for training, that it would give you something to fall back on when those instances arrive, because you know they're gonna arise.
You wanna come up with something, Roger?
I can do that.
Okay.
Have they seen this at all?
They
No,
have not. This
no.
is strictly for board discussion. You had asked me to put together a sample of what an agreement might look like, and I did that. And I did seek input from the manager, from the zoning administrator, from the public works department, because portions of the trails are in the wellhead area and so forth. So they all gave me some excellent advice on things that should be in there and on wording. So those, I've incorporated those suggestions, but if you come up with more suggestions tonight or as this moves along,
It's a,
Those can all be put in.
it's a great first start.
Yeah, it's very comprehensive.
And I think it really belongs with us alone until we get satisfied.
Any other or suggestions that you want to add while Roger's here?
No, but
Did you have any more?
No, that was it. It's the only thing that jumped out is we didn't seem to hold anybody accountable to educate their users.
Well, we haven't had a chance to see this new version either, so if we read this and come back and put it on the next agenda again with his extra sentence on training.
So I will remove my motion then, so it didn't exist.
Okay.
Remove your
You have a
second, Jim?
Yeah, you had John.
yes,
So I'll make a new motion that we return this item to the next agenda.
Okay.
I'd support that.
All in favor?
With the additions stated.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, got that. So, set another work session for manager recruitment discussion. Keep you guys busy. Do you want to do the next week? Do you want to wait for a while?
Now, I did,
Time?
late today, I did send out an addendum that Royal Oak had sent to me, a larger version of their RFP. And I had put copies at your desk as well.
Is that the latest one that you put at the desk?
Yes, yep. That's, the RFP that was approved by the council went to finance and grew. Let's put it that way. So they put a bunch of more provisions and pages on it. So, basically, it demonstrates how brief or how expansive an RFP can be, going out to look for proposals from potential recruitment sources.
Then you look at what Chalkley's doing.
Don't look too close at that.
Don't look. That's what I was gonna say, don't look at what they're doing.
I like the brief one best.
Yeah, and some, I went out and looked, and some simply say, we're gonna be having a new manager. If you want to submit a proposal, contact so-and-such, such and such for details. And that's their ad, that's their proposal. But you do need to lay out what you want them to do and how far you want them to go. So that can be after an initial meeting, or it can be at the time of, putting it out.
Set up
And
some-
it could be as brief as saying, you're in charge, here's the job description, here's what we're looking for, go find it, that kind of thing.
Certain qualifications.
Yep. Areas, geographic areas, if you want to limit the geographic area, nobody from Hawaii because you don't want to pay the interview expenses, whatever, you frame that environment for them.
I would be available in the afternoon, the week of the 15th.
Me too.
Does the 18th look?
I'll be out of town.
Are you free that week? The
17th, yeah, but the 18th I'm leaving.
I got solid waste at 4, so maybe like 1
Yeah,
Which day?
on the 17th, Wednesday,
I can't do it.
at all that day.
Double up on the 8th?
Come in an hour earlier on the 16th for our meeting? Would that work? Well, we got recreation at 5:30. That'll mess you, and, well, Pete probably won't be back by then, but. Double up on the 8th, is that what you said? Who said that?
I don't think either one of them will be very long.
9th,
The guy
10th,
to my
11th.
left.
Yeah, the guy to your left. I
Well,
don't think
just-
either one of those
Why don't they just
topics
schedule
would
it
be
for the
very
same
long at this
time
point.
and
They were saying we could double up,
Two subjects,
Eight.
yeah.
double up on the 8th.
The first part isn't gonna take that long anyway.
Just have
Fine with me.
two topics on the
Yeah.
agenda?
Works for me.
So I'll schedule I'll make a motion to schedule this work session at the same time as the other one, and we'll just have two subjects of discussion,
Yeah.
starting at 2 o'clock
Right.
on the 8th.
Okay, so budget discussion, or definitions and.
Sounds like that would work for most people's schedule better.
Manager recruitment.
And if
So
there's
Monday, the 8th at 2, this will be.
If there's
combined work
anything
session.
else specific that you would like to have before that meeting, let me know.
Okay,
I need a second.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay. I just got a work session, we'll see what we can come up with.
We got 2 items now
Yeah.
for that work session.
7, 8, and 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Okay. Well, I lost what little public we have unless Lisa wants to throw something out. Announcements?
We got two brief ones, Lynn.
Sure, go ahead.
At your board spots tonight, it is now July. It is time for the manager's evaluation, so I put that at your spot. I will also email that form to you, if you want to do it electronically.
Yep.
That is due the end of this month, or August 1st. That evaluation period is from last August through this July.
And that's important because sometimes in the past, things had come up on the review from years before.
Yeah, it's not,
And this is just year to year. Try to keep your scope of what's happened and what your comments are just in this last year.
and with the new election laws now, we have to be open 8 hours on the weekend prior to the election. So we chose to be open 8 hours on the Saturday before the election, which is August 3rd, same as Community Day. So we'll be open 8 to 4 that day, the office.
Can you just have a booth over to Lions Field?
No, we can't.
Unfortunately.
No, the office will be open that Saturday from 8 to 4. That'll be to take in absentee, register you to vote, or give out absentee ballots. With the new law, you can register to vote up to Election Day. If for some reason you want to register on Election Day, you have to come to this office and register here. We'll give you a receipt, and then you'll go to your polling location and present the receipt at the e-poll book, and then we can get you registered into the system to vote. So we have also, they have programmed the machines to be faster than they used to be, so hopefully they'll scan. That was kind of the linchpin before. We couldn't get, everything was going good, but the machines were so slow stuffing the ballot in. And they've overworked, they've fixed the programming on that, and the ballot should go in much quicker like the old one. So hopefully that'll be better. And Election Day is August 6th. Polls will be open 7 to 8 p.m., 7 in the morning to 8 p.m., and there's only one question on the ballot, and it's going to be for the Marquette County Care Facility millage. And then the township board meeting for August will be the next night, will be Wednesday, the 7th at 6:30.
Any questions for Randy? Does anybody have anything else to share for an announcement? You might notice that some of the documents we had in here tonight, including QPAD, addressed census numbers, which is what I brought to you last month. I think the importance of our involvement in whether or not we want to support education for the census with our people. The county has taken it on, and they're going to, they've got a whole bunch of stuff planned with how they're going to educate people and get them, make sure everybody's counted. But a couple of the things in here in tonight's packet referred back to, based on county and township numbers, county and township numbers, and that's where that comes from. That it's very important.
I think as we get closer, I think utilizing our information we put with the water bills, emphasizing the people to complete them and the effect it has and the benefits for the township and that, too,
Yeah,
so.
there are benefits. And even, but the biggest issue was that a lot of the kids weren't counted. I don't remember if it was the county or the UP, but I do have the statistics in the last census, and that diminished a lot of the funding, federal and state funding that we got in this area, because obviously all the kids didn't show up. A lot of people maybe don't want to tell that they've got 5 kids or something, I don't know. I'm a pretty private person too, but it's to their benefit, whether it's food stamps or, school lunches or
Programs.
whatever.
All kinds of things.
Those are things that we can try and emphasize through communication to how much it's gonna benefit, I don't know, but if you keep throwing it at them, maybe they'll do something.
Well, even just eligibility for programs. Many programs are predicated upon what your population level is. If you don't have a certain level of population, you don't qualify for that funding. So it's important to have everybody counted.
And that's even the same thing with developers, when they come in. They look at the numbers in the county, whether it's Olive Garden or whoever everybody wants, they look at those demographics and say, well, if there's only so many people here, we can't afford that, we'll go somewhere else. So it's a bunch of stuff, school funding, and it's everything. So I just wanted to point that out.
Lynn? Something that might be more effective in that, if you're gonna put it on the back of utility bills, is rather than put a whole blurb out there about the census, if you just put, every month, put a one-liner on there about, did you know that?
Yeah.
And just hit them with one piece of new information with respect to the census. If you did that every month, I think it would have more of an impact and they'd remember it better.
Probably would.
That's a good idea.
Couple sentences and.
I have a whole
Go.
book of all the different departments and everybody, how it's affected everybody. Lots of statistics.
Biggest thing, how
Good idea.
it's gonna benefit the township.
I know what happens if you put a whole bunch of stuff on the back of my utility billing, I just throw it away.
Oh,
Well, I have the calendar up, so I don't see the back as quickly either. Gotta make it a point to look.
Too much information.
Yep.
Okay, manager's report.
Speaking of which, too much
Yes.
Pretty brief, mainly talking about what's going on in the corridor, and thank you, Lisa, for the article on driver behavior. I hope that helps somewhat. I was real happy to see that MDOT ended up putting 2 lanes with a left turn lane as opposed to the 1 lane in each direction that they were originally talking about. They listened, that was not going to work, and even in its current configuration, I came back from the western part of the township this afternoon, and it's still confusing with the lane shift. I mean, if you're going faster than 40 miles an hour, you may miss the lane shift, and you may veer off into the other lane. So start observing the speed limit through there. Other thing is, I don't know where Michigan's at on it, but Illinois. If you're going to be traveling through Illinois after today, actually, it was the 1st of July, they have a hands-free law that just went into play. No cell phones, if you're touching anything other than the steering wheel, you're going to get stopped and ticketed in Illinois. No fiddling with the navigation, no laptops, no cell phones, nothing.
What about
No
your
makeup?
radio?
No beer.
Everybody's
beer?
always messing with their radios.
If you're distracted, you're fair game.
Wow, good.
So, and there are several other states that have already adopted a similar law, and a couple others have them on the books. I know when I was traveling in New York in 2001, basically, they passed the law there, and it made a significant difference overnight in terms of driver behavior and congestion. So, and they were adamant about enforcing it.
I think that's a good idea.
New York Patrol, and it really made a big difference in terms of traffic. It really did. Literally, you could visually see it. But at any event, primarily the manager's report is dealing with issues with the corridor. They're going great guns with construction out there. Going to have temporary entrances. They haven't fired up the temporary lights yet, but they will be doing that pretty quickly. One to Wright Street, one at Walmart, to allow traffic to make the turns that need to be done. The left turn lane is in place. We still see a lineup of people trying to turn left out of the GFS driveway.
Not for long.
It's just, I don't understand it, why they, with the congestion that there is there, to be trying to make that left turn instead of going to the light, the signalized left turn light. I just don't get it. But at any event, that's still happening. So if you're driving through there, be cautious of that, because they cannot, if you're driving westbound and there's a car in the outside lane and you're in the inside lane, those folks turning left out of there cannot see you. And that's where we've been having the crashes. They pull out because they can't see you, and you're right there going 40 miles an hour, and you're not gonna probably stop before you hit them. So, two things. Number one, don't turn left out of that driveway. And number two, be cautious heading that way, because somebody will.
When I left
was
GFS
it.
today, I went to the light and I stopped at Burger King and got a sandwich, so that's a good thing too. I knew I had to eat.
I have literally, I have left Lowe's with the people sitting in that driveway trying to turn left, gone to the light, made my left turn, and passed them still sitting there on the you know, when I go past them on the highway, they're still sitting there trying to turn left. So go to the light. It isn't that long, and it's not that far away.
I saw the sheriff yesterday and talked to him briefly, and he said they have just been writing tickets after tickets after
Oh, lots of
tickets.
them. Lots of tickets.
People
Numerous, yeah.
enforceable.
A lot of speeders, and they're writing them.
Oh, yeah. And that's the only other thing I have, is to remember, set your calendars for Saturday, August 3rd for Community Day at Lions Field. We are putting the netting up. It's in the process of going up right now in the north end of the ice rink. Most of the poles, I was there this morning, and most of the poles are up. They're going to be stringing the net here pretty quick, and I'll be putting in another grant request for the south end. So we're able to do it within that $5,000 grant, and we'll be trying to get a same thing from Power Plant for a safety grant on the south end. So it'll be all net all the way around.
Cool.
Wasn't there a net many, many years ago, or that we had? Was that just a temporary one?
Batting cage.
I'm sorry?
That was a batting and pitching cage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was, it looked like it was, but it was basically an enclosure that they were practicing pitching and batting in. We temporarily, I know what you're talking about, yes, we temporarily strung a net on the
West
west side
Yeah, by-
to protect the one house, but it
By
wasn't.
Joe's house.
Yeah, but it didn't go around. This net is all the way around from the warming building, all the way around to equal on the other side.
So no more pucks and stuff in their
You're gonna have to work
yard.
hard to get them over this one.
Good. I'm sure they're very happy. Umbrellas.
They will be. And then hopefully we'll be able to finish from there around the south end as well with the next one next spring.
Good.
That's it.
Okay, any questions for the manager? Okay, review our motions, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, the consent agenda was approved as presented. A regular agenda was approved as amended. The third motion was to schedule a work session Monday, the 8th at 2 p.m. on budget definitions. Fourth motion was to schedule a public hearing for fire rescue services on, so we'll find out, that might be next meeting or the meeting after that, depending on the timeline. Fifth motion was to approve the QPAD renewal. Sixth motion was to bring the draft license agreement format back to the next agenda for further consideration. Seventh motion was to schedule a work session for manager recruitment Monday, the 8th at 2 p.m., the same as the other one, be a 2-item. And I believe that's it.
All right, so the only thing I have right now, unless somebody has something else, is to add the license agreement back. It's actually draft 3 on the next agenda for July 16th. Anybody else needs something else, let me know, or Randy, one of the Randys, both of them. Any board member comment? Yes, Dan.
I just would like to wish our trustee Pete LaRue a speedy recovery and a surgery.
No. Anything else? Dave?
I did talk to him this afternoon. He's doing fine. He's coming home tomorrow, he thinks. And just to tag on to what the manager said about the construction traffic out there, I go through there a couple times a day, and it just leaves you scratching your head when you see somebody approach the lane change and right at the lane change slam on their brakes and pull off to the shoulder because they can't figure out where to go. It's just scary.
Well, even coming out of Menards, if you're going by it, they've got one thing there, but there's actually like a road. So if you weren't paying attention to that, it's not a cone, it's a barrel. You could take that, and I don't know where it would take you, I didn't even look, into AT&T maybe, but it's not a real road. So you really have to pay attention. And then it goes this way.
Well, Pete will be our expert.
Yeah.
That will depend on.
Okay, anything else? Motion?
Move to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Just me?
Aye.
7:58. We are adjourned.